We're very excited that you have joined us today. Hope that everybody is staying safe and healthy out there as well. We are very excited to have a fantastic guest speaker, Mardy Fish, to talk to us a little bit. My name is Dan Holman. I work with the USTA National Office, and my colleague Lou Brewer is here as well. We're going to go through some of the junior tournament changes. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our General Manager of Player Development, Martin Blackman. Martin Blackman, take it away, please, sir.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Thank you. And I just want to echo Dan's sentiments for the group that's joined today. Hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. I'm going to give a brief overview of the content that Dan and Lou are going to be delivering today. And then we've got a treat. We're going to have a little bit of time with Q&A with our Davis Cup captain, one of our great players, Mardy Fish. But first off, today's webinar is about the USTA Junior Unification Project, which is slated to go into effect on January 1st, 2021. We won't be addressing any issues today related to the suspension of competition due to the COVID-19 virus. The USTA is updating the tennis community regularly through various social media channels, but our goal is to get back to playing as soon as it's safe to do so. Today's webinar will provide you with an overview of the plans to unify junior tennis in 2021. Dan and Lou will cover a lot of details, but there'll be more information sent out along with a dedicated website for this project at www.usta.com/junior tour. The new structure will utilize 7 levels of events, ranging from level 7, which is an intermediate level, to level 1, which is what we now call national championships. We'll also have a universal ranking system that will distribute points consistently across the country. The nationwide system will provide consistent tournament levels and standardized tournament operations for all events, regardless of location, replacing a current system that is greatly dependent upon the region. The new system will allow players to more easily compete across sections, as the levels will be standardized with an increased number of open events, providing even more playing opportunities for junior players. In addition, there will be a series of non-ranking events, which will focus on age-appropriate competition, development, and of course, fun. With that, I want to go ahead and just welcome you, Mardy. Thanks for taking the time. It's really an honor to have you on the webinar and to be able to ask you a few questions. First, I just want to start off by referencing an unbelievable 16-year career that featured quarterfinal appearances in 3 Grand Slams, the Australian Open, US Open, and Wimbledon, a career high of number 7. And in looking at your record, I think it's really important to note that your 6 ATP Tour titles came on 3 different surfaces, which is amazing. But I want to kick it off and just kind of hear a little bit from you. I know that midway through your career, towards the end of 2009, you really recommitted to your fitness and your nutrition, and it had a huge impact on the second half of your career. Could you talk a little bit about that decision you made and kind of how you came to that point?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hopefully everyone out there is staying safe and healthy, and hopefully get out of this fairly soon, get back to tennis. Throughout my career, I had a good junior career late in my junior career, when I was 17 years old, 16 and 17. Really started to dedicate myself just to tennis as opposed to golf and basketball and some baseball in there. And so really started dedicating myself just to tennis, and had some success early, and that I'm not sure if that helped me a whole lot, because my first sort of full year on tour was when I was 20 and 21 years old, and finished inside the top 20 there, and I felt like it would probably come fairly easy. So that in turn probably didn't help me initially. Just sort of thinking, okay, I can rely on my talents and everything will be great. And, you know,
Right.
Andy Roddick and I sort of grew up together and we trained together and stuff. And when we came through together, he, you know, he went to #1 that year and I finished like, I don't know, maybe 17 or something that year. So like, okay, this is going to be great, you know, and then some injuries sort of came into play and look, it wasn't that I didn't think I was working hard. I just didn't. I worked until I was tired, and so then I would stop. And so I didn't understand the professionalism that it actually took to get everything out of what you have to offer. Not everybody. Obviously, very few people out there are going to be in the top 5 in the world or have the talent to be in the top 5 in the world or the top 10 in the world. But I didn't know what my physical abilities were or where they were going to take me in tennis. But I wasn't getting everything out of it, whatever that was. And so in 2009, I had a knee problem, probably because I was too heavy, carrying too much weight. So I had a knee surgery, and I had like 2.5 to 3 months to really focus in, and that was sort of the middle of my career, and that was kind of the time where I had time to, you know, I had those 3 months to be able to really go to work on my diet, you know, because I'd always wanted to really get my fitness down. I just for whatever reason never clicked, and I matured a little bit later than some kids do, and everyone matures at a different rate. Mine was later than most, and I didn't understand until I had that time that I really needed to change my lifestyle, needed to change my professionalism. I wasn't much of a partier or anything like that. I was a normal kid like everybody else, and at 21, 22, sure. 23 years old, and so I really dedicated myself and changed my lifestyle, changed what I ate, changed how I trained, and everything sort of came together because of the nutrition, to be honest. Once I was able to drop what I thought was going to be 15 pounds, ended up being over 30 pounds, everything fell into place. So I was able to train longer. I was able to work on my strengths and weaknesses longer on the court. I was able to work on my fitness longer. I was able to get stronger because I didn't get as tired. So it was a huge, huge part of the second part of my career, and it changed my life, really. I don't think I'd be talking to you guys right now as a Davis Cup captain, as a dream job of mine to be if I hadn't done that. So I'm very grateful that we figured it out, that I had the support staff or support system in place to be able to do that.
Well, thanks for that, Marty. Thanks for sharing. I mean, it says so much about your mindset, and the mindset that we're trying to develop in our top players is to just leave no stone unturned and to really look at every possible way that you can get better. And obviously you did that. I'm glad you mentioned Davis Cup because that's a perfect segue. I've heard you talk a lot about how special your time playing Davis Cup, representing the USA, wearing the flag on your jersey has been for you. And now we're just so fortunate to have you as our Davis Cup captain. Maybe you can talk a little bit about both those components, being a player on a Davis Cup team and now being the leader of the Davis Cup team.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. There really isn't in our sport. It's the premier team competition in tennis, Davis Cup and the Fed Cup for the women, and it's been going on since 1900. So it was an honor to play. It's an absolute honor to be the captain and to lead the guys. When I played, I never said no, whether it was being a practice partner in the top 15 in the world, because we had James Blake and Andy Roddick, who were both in the top 10, and the Bryan brothers, who were #1 in the world in doubles. I'd still go as a practice partner and get those guys ready, or whether it was when they needed me to play. And we played a lot of matches. I've played a lot of matches over the years, and I remember most of them, but I definitely remember every single Davis Cup match that I played vividly. I had a blast as my first Davis Cup experience was in Santander, Spain, in the semifinals of the Davis Cup in 2000. We played against Spain, obviously, and John McEnroe was our captain, and it was pretty. So I didn't play for him, obviously, but obviously was on the team, and so I had John McEnroe, then Patrick McEnroe, and then Jim Courier. So all over the place with personalities and experiences that I can dial in and dwell on as the captain now, and sort of use some of the things that I enjoyed and liked as a player, and then some of the things that weren't quite as fun or that we could tweak a little bit and try to use that. So I had the opportunity of having two captains that I played for that were amazing, and obviously Johnny Mac was different for sure and interesting. He did it only for 1 year, so it was fun. So that was fun, and yeah, it's just an honor. It's an absolute honor to be a dream job, like I said before, to lead these guys. We got a great crop of junior players, or not juniors. I guess they act like juniors, but they're young players, young sort of studs that we've got 4 or 5 of those guys that are inside, sort of the top 50, 60 in the world, and they all genuinely get along really well, and we're building something great, and it's just awesome to lead those guys in that competition and be a part of it.
Well, kudos to you, Marty. You're great in that role, and the guys love playing for you. So we're looking forward to seeing the evolution and the maturity of the guys that you have, and we know that great things are coming. So thanks so much for what you're doing.
Don't put their maturity on me, though. Please don't do that.
I got you. Well, look, just going into the content of this webinar, I mean, it's focused on the simplification and unification of our junior tournament structure. As a former junior player and the dad of 2 children, Beckett and Stella, who may play tennis tournaments at some point, how do you think this reform will help players and parents?
Yeah, I think it's great. Look, I've got a 6-year-old son that we're here in LA, and it's a ghost town out here right now, but he wanted to play tennis yesterday, so we rode our bikes over to UCLA. We live close to UCLA, and there's no nets, but he wanted to hit, and so we went and hit some tennis balls, and he doesn't play a ton of tennis. He loves his golf and stuff, but I was 6 years. The reason why I told you I was 6 years old when I played my first tournament. My father is a teaching pro. My father is a guy that has an incredible love for the game of tennis, maybe more than anyone I've ever met in my life. And he's a guy that had been going to the U.S. Open even before I was born as a fan. So to have some of the experiences that we had over the years at the U.S. Open and at some tournaments was really special for a father and a son. And
Sure.
And it's special to I look back at all the junior tournaments that I played throughout the years. I played, like I said, 6 years old was my first tournament. I lost 6-0, 6-0 to a guy from Venezuela that had a kick serve and an overhead at 6, which was unheard of. So I certainly remember driving, my mom driving me around nonstop, sometimes sometimes hours and hours to go to tournaments and things, and this new reform is great because it's that you don't have to. There's more opportunity. It's more accessible to be able to play these events. Especially at the lower levels, that provide a lot more opportunities for families who are who live closer, whether you live on close to state lines, and can jump into neighboring USTA sections and things like that. So that's going to be awesome, and certainly wish we had that back in the day, and I know it's going to be awesome in the future.
That's great. Well, Marty, thanks for being a great American champion, a great role model, and a great leader on our Davis Cup team, and thank you for making the time to be with us today.
It's my pleasure, Martin. Thanks for having me. My schedule wasn't super full, so it's all good. Call me anytime.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks. Take care. Take care. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I would just want to echo, I'm sure everybody on the call want to appreciate, really thank Marty for jumping on, and thank you, Martin, for facilitating that discussion. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick off this webinar. I think it's important, judging from looking at some of the poll results here, how familiar the group is on this webinar. I think it's important to provide some context for everybody as to why some of these decisions were made and kind of how this came about. Want to also go ahead and get this out of the way and let everybody know, I think the reason why there is a lot of buzz and excitement around these changes is because these changes originated from our junior PD managers and from our volunteers. So what I mean by that is it really originated with, it wasn't a top-down, this is how it's going to be coming from national. This genuinely came from our sections, our states, and our group of volunteers who really went through some of this data and analytics that I'm going to show. And it really originated a couple of years ago at a meeting in California where this group of people who literally eat, sleep, and breathe tennis day in and day out saw this data and information and really thought that there was something, this was a really good opportunity for us to really make tennis more accessible, affordable, and fun, and to really help out everything that's going on. So just want to be sure everybody is aware of that this really did originate from our sections. So what you're looking at here, these are our junior tournament numbers. So currently right now in the USTA, our two flagship programs are USTA Junior Tournaments and Junior Team Tennis. What you're looking at here is essentially where we have what we've done historically since 2012. The dark blue is a child that's played in one tournament, and the light blue is 6 or more, which the majority of plays in this country is how you the maximum number of points you can get for ranking. So you can kind of see what we've done historically in junior tournaments. We really have kind of been treading water. I like to say we're kind of operating kind of a comfort zone and a no progress zone. And that's kind of how we've been operating essentially for the last decade in junior tournaments. This next slide here, in case you're wondering about our other flagship program, is Junior Team Tennis. You can see the dark blue is like our local track or the non-advancing track. The light blue would kind of be our national advancing track. So you can kind of see it's pretty similar to the junior tournaments in terms of numbers. All these decisions that were made, just again providing context, were really based, it was really important that we did a lot of this based upon data and analytics and not based upon somebody's opinion. So that's why I think it's very important that everybody's aware of some of these figures. This next slide here, I'm kind of more of a visual person. If you can't tell already, this is attraction and retention really is two cornerstones to the success of our sport. If we don't attract more players to our sport and retain the ones that we have, we're going to have a hard time growing. So this gives you an idea on what happens. This is 100 players, and this is what happens to them after they play one of our flagship programs. About 40% continue playing after 1 year. And this is what the data has been telling us historically within the last decade. So again, this gives you an idea on kind of what is currently going on out in market. Really the health and sustainability of our sport relies on really these two things, in my opinion, athlete attraction and player retention. All right, well, it's 2020. This is a pretty competitive environment, right? There's a lot going on out in the world. There's a lot of other options. There's a lot of other sports that families can do and people can play. The other thing, too, here is that it's 2020 with screen times. It's a very competitive environment out there to get people off their screens, especially kids. So, again, fully aware of that, knowing I use the term families and now millennial families now and moving forwards are what I consider time poor. There's never really enough time in the day for them. So it's very important that we're aware of that and that we know that our customers are evolving. So if our customers are evolving and what their expectations are, it's important as a national governing body that we continue to evolve with them. All right, so that's kind of our numbers and data and kind of what we were looking at. So what we did from this point is we said, okay, here's what the numbers, why is this happening? So again, instead of basing these decisions on opinions, we really wanted to base upon data. So we decided to partner with the University of Central Florida, for those of you that haven't heard this, and we actually did our own study. We interviewed thousands and thousands of customers, players, parents, and coaches, the players over the age of 13 because of COPA regulations. But we interviewed thousands of people. We got a response rate of 11%, which for those of you who are in the research field know that 11% is quite high. And let's just say our customer was very eager to tell us what their thoughts were on our USTA programming and wanted to give us some feedback, which is critically important to really setting up a lot of these changes. So this is if you can imagine, this summary was over 500 pages long, the executive summary. So I condensed that and put it in one slide here. But this gives you an idea. I highlighted some of them, the key points in red. But you know what our parents were saying is, I'm guessing there's a lot of parents and coaches on this call. You're looking at that going, yeah, I could have told you a lot of that, which we had assumptions as well. But for us, it was important for us to really learn and really see it firsthand from the data standpoint. So, you know, I'm not going to read all these, but, you know, again, the tennis isn't fun. You're completely alone. People wanted more team products. It's leading to burnout. There's too much. Chasing points is too much. The cheating, that came through loud and clear. Cheating is rampant. Too much pressure. The website, overwhelmingly confusing, creating a barrier, things of that nature. We have some good news on that. I'm going to save that good info for Lou, but we have some good info in regards to the website and structure. So that's what our customer was saying. So this next slide is another Dr. Neeraj Anthi. So again, really leaning towards our experts and really seeing what they're saying is really going on in the field. So Dr. Neeraj is a director of Emory Sports Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia, and he came and spoke to some of our coaches last February, and he made a comment. He said the most important ability is availability. And what he's saying is, in his practice, he's seeing an immense amount, a huge increase in overuse injuries with players at younger ages, which to him is encouraging sports specialization at a young age, or people playing with a developmentally maybe inappropriate ball color. So what's happening is people are getting tendonitis and younger injuries at 8, 9, 10, and the problem is they're already broken before they are even into their formative developmental years. So again, really important that we are creating developmentally appropriate products, shorter duration products, and simplifying our pathway for our customer. That's something that was very important to him and something that we need to continue to think about as we're evolving, adapting our sport. This next slide here, I'm not going to go into a ton of specifics here. Along with what Dr. Neeraj Anthi said is, we have now, from that and through the work of a lot of our fantastic colleagues here, we developed what's called the American Development Model. So, you know, the goal of this is to really help develop long-term athletic principles in order to help guide parents and coaches along their tennis journey, basically, is a summary of it. What you see listed there are the 7 guiding principles, and I'm here to tell you, tennis has their ADM for the first time ever. You see on the lower right there, and we'll send out the recording of this. On the lower right there, you see the website. So I would encourage you to go look through and read this. This is kind of our North Star, so to speak, what we're really looking at as the guiding a lot of and help facilitating a lot of these changes. As you can see, you know, we need to better train our coaches. We need to make things more fun. We need to make things more universal. All the things that Marty and Martin said, and also stuff that came through the research is critically important for us. Okay, so from there, so that's the data and analytics. So what we did is we took all this information. We said, okay, now what? Now what are the next steps? So what do we do to be sure we're providing developmentally appropriate products? And what we learned through the research and from our customers and our junior PD managers is that we learned that ranked tournaments really aren't for everybody. And what we want to try and do with a lot of these changes is to be sure we're casting a wide net and getting people of all skill levels engaged in tennis and keeping a racket in their hands. So these next few slides, this slide here, what you're looking at, I'm going to talk briefly about these dark blue squares here, which is what we're calling the USTA Junior Circuit. This is a suite of non-ranking products. So again, we're not trying to detract what's going on with our ranked tournaments. In fact, I would argue we're trying to enhance them and to get even more players engaged in our sport. And if they choose to continue to play in ranked tournaments, then that's a win. And if they choose not to, then we keep a racket in their hands and they're playing some of these non-ranking products. So real quickly, I'm going to go through these. Again, this is a summary of our 4 buckets currently. Just providing developmentally appropriate products. Again, what we learned through the research is that, we heard that a lot of the times people were playing the wrong level tournament or playing in a ranked tournament that maybe really wasn't for them, and therefore they had a bad experience, and we lost them altogether. So again, trying to, through the ADM, and get people to be sure that they're playing in appropriate products is our goal. This first bucket here, again, it's called a team challenge. It's really just a low-pressure team environment, really not incorporating scores, red, orange, and green, shorter duration event. Again, you kind of sense a theme here, shorter duration, more team. This is stuff that we've been piloting the last year or two, and it's been very successful. So that gives you an idea on what a team challenge is. The next bucket here would be a team tournament. So that would be a place where somebody could advance to. So this is kind of like World Team Tennis style. It's an innovative tournament that includes subs. So you can tag in, tag in, tag out. You have a singles court and a doubles court, and they can go back and forth. So an innovative team format. Again, these are no rankings. Again, through the research, we fully heard that we needed more products that our customer wanted to play in, that, again, ranking tournaments weren't necessarily for everybody. So that's a team tournament. This past year, we did some pilots to give you an idea. Over 1,000 people ran, 4,500 pilots with just about 95,000 people. We have to simplify our product offerings, not only for our customer who's actually playing in these events, but also for my tournament directors and for my providers on this webinar. We have to make it simpler and more turnkey for all of you to even want to offer our products, which is another big goal and a reason why we're headed this direction. All right, this next one, we're currently in pilot phase, but obviously, unfortunately, with everything going on with the pandemic, we had to put things on hold. But our goal is for this product, a round robin is going to be we're pegging as kind of a bridge product between ranking and non-ranking. So this is going to be an individual type round robin format. We're going to test potentially the use of a rating with the world tennis number. And players are going to be groups in 3, 4, 5, and they can, it's not so divisionized, so it's no age specific, non-gender specific. So it's kind of different than a ranked tournament. So again, more open, more inclusive. And this, we think, is going to be a very appealing product for a lot of people. So stay tuned on this one. And this last one here is what we're calling our team league bucket, which is going to be a version of junior team tennis. Again, junior team tennis, if you can remember from one of my first data points there, that the non-advancing track or the local track seems to be working well. So we have a good team component that we're trying to build, and there's still the committee and there's a project team still in developmental stages, really trying to fine-tune exactly what this league product is, but just know that there is going to be a league aspect as well. So as you can see from the 3 different buckets, the 4 buckets, 3 out of the 4 are considered team events. So again, came through loud and clear through the research that, we want to encourage sports sampling. We want to get less burnout, attract more players, and be sure we're providing developmentally appropriate team products, shorter duration, which is our goal. So with that, that's a very high-level summary of our non-ranking stuff, and now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Lou Brewer to update everybody on the ranked tournament system. Lou, are you there?
I'm afraid so.
All right, take it away.
All right,
please,
thank you, Dan. All right, so you've heard Dan speak quite a bit about what we're trying to do in our non-ranked space, and we want to spend some time here talking about what the plans are for tournaments that offer ranking points. We're calling these USTA Junior Tournaments. I think one thing that we want to point out, which Dan briefly touched on, is that along with the changes that we're making in our ranked tournament space, there is a new suite of software products that are being developed in 2020 for rollout later this year with effect in 2021. And one of the good things about the new products that are coming is that the registration for tournaments will be a lot simpler. Our tournament directors will have many more tools to communicate directly with players. Our tournament web pages will be significantly improved, and I think it will make participating in our ranked space quite a bit easier and, dare I say, even more enjoyable than our current tennis link system. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about our tournaments. One of the reasons that we were motivated to make these changes is that we put a lot of structural barriers up for our players. We have so many different names of tournaments, so many different levels, different systems, and these structural barriers that we have were so confusing for our customers that, as Dan pointed out in the research study that we did, that so many people were just confused about our system, where to start, how to progress along, that they just said, well, forget it. We don't need to do this. We're going to play something else that's a lot easier to understand. So I'm sure for most of you on this call, who've had a lot of experience in the game, it doesn't surprise you that every section having a different system, in some cases the districts having a different system, did not lend itself to be endearing for our customers and engaging them into continuing to compete in our system. So this was one of the really big motivating factors in the changes that are coming in 2021. Dan showed you this slide earlier, and what we're going to focus on now is the ranked tournament space. As you can see, it's 7 levels of tournaments. The higher levels, there's not a lot of change in those levels 1 through 3. We'll see a lot of changes in levels 4 through 7. But the goal with all of these is to have a nationwide system of 7 levels of tournaments. There won't be any other levels out there, no 6As, 6Bs, none of that stuff. We'll have 7 consistent levels of tournaments across the country that will use the same naming format, and the ranking points will be the same at every level tournament around the country. So, for example, if you're playing a level 6 in California or a level 6 in New York, those ranking points are the same, and there will be consistency in the naming convention of those products. One of the things that you think about in our tournament structure that gave people fits is that it wasn't simple and clear. There were all, as I said earlier, there were all sorts of structural barriers that existed in our current system, which drove people away. So now in 2021, there will be no structural advantages from being from one section to another, where a section might offer significantly more tournaments of one type that a player in another section wouldn't have the advantage to participate in. We're going to break down the section barriers and make it easier for players to compete across section lines if that's what they want to do. We will be finally speaking the same language. We'll have consistency in naming conventions of events across the country, so it'll be very easy to understand that a level 3 or level 4, for example, in New Mexico is essentially the same as a level 4 in South Dakota. Maybe different climates, but the tournament will be essentially the same. One of the most important things, in my opinion, is that your points and records travel with you now. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before, that we have real-life examples of players who have been successful in one section who, for whatever reason, have moved to a different section, and it's as if they've never played tournament tennis before. They've had to start back at the beginning. So now your points, your records go with you no matter where you live, and you'll be able to compete more easily across section borders. And most importantly, there will be one national ranking list. Everybody will be on one list that will include all players that have ranking points. When our customers go to our new website to look at rankings, they'll be able to filter the one national list for their section or district, and the list will automatically renumber so that customers will be able to see what their position would be in their own home section or district. But the beauty of this is that this and applying it all across the country will make it much easier to have one standings list that people can refer to. Again, everything counts. You play a level 7 in Florida, that counts. Even if you're from Maryland, that's going to count on your record in Maryland. So we really think this will make it a lot simpler for players. Almost every section in the past had pretty significant requirements in order for a player to advance to national competition, and we want to turn that thinking upside down. And instead of having requirements to meet, we're going to offer incentives to play instead, which is really the right way to do that. And probably the biggest part of that is that we're eliminating the concept of endorsement for our national championships. No longer will a player have to worry about playing a certain number of tournaments in their home section in order to qualify for competition in our national championships. We will retain quota, so players will still be able to earn entry to national championships based on their section quota lists, but we are eliminating the concept of endorsement where a player has to meet a set of minimum requirements in order to qualify for competition in our national championships. And one of the really neat things about as we move play with and against each other, and it all counts. Currently in our system, the boys live in one world and the girls live in another, and the two never meet. And so now by integrating boys and girls together, we can do things like have mixed doubles at tournaments, and those will count just like the same gender doubles counts now. So we really see a lot of benefits to this unified structure, and adapting one ranking point table to the entire country and the entire 7 levels of tournaments. This gives you a good sense of where the points live in our new 7-level structure. You can see that the 5s, 6s, and 7s, the length of days for each of those tournaments, those are mostly section and district events. And our national championships are at the top, as you can see. and the point structure works so that if a player were to win a national championship, that would be the most points available to anyone in the country. So you get 100% of whatever points we have available, and you work your way down. So to win a national level 2 would be equal to 60% of winning a national championship. And it works, as you can see, on down the line, all the way down to level 7. So the good point is that in all of these levels, level 7s all across the country, they use the same ranking point table. There's no longer a specific ranking point table for a section or a district. We just want to talk here a little bit about some of the differences between level 6s and 7s. Duration is obviously the something that people think about the most. Remember, level 7 is for your low intermediate player, their first exposure to ranked tournaments. This will be played in all age divisions. Who knows when players will come into our sport and at what level, and we want to make sure that these events are available to players in all age divisions. You can see that the event should last up to 1 day. We fully expect that there will be a lot of level 7 events out there. Some facilities may want to offer more than one level 7 tournament in a day. You could easily play these in half a day, and you might have a situation where a club or a park or a school hosts a morning L7 and an afternoon L7. The level 6s is obviously a little higher intermediate level. It could be up to 2 days for a level 6, and again, we want this across all of our age levels. Let's look for a minute at the scoring format. We want there to be enough formats so that there's flexibility for our tournament operators to offer a product that will be most appealing to their customers. So you can see all of the kinds of scoring formats that are available in level 7. And the level 6 is just slightly less, but that reflects that level 6 could be played over 2 days. So there should be enough there for everybody in those with those scoring formats. Draw formats, it's much the same. We expect to see in our level 7s round robins dominate. Round robins and compass draws dominate the level 7 space, and level 6, as you might imagine, slightly more draw formats because of the length of the events. We continue with some language that can be confusing for people. FICQ obviously means feed in through the quarterfinals, and MFIC, another confusing acronym, stands for modified feed in. So we're still looking at better names for those that will make it a bit more clear for our customers. Dan referred to the bridge a little bit. We want to talk about that more. You know, the round robin space in our non-ranked areas, we think is really going to be that product where players can develop an enjoyment of competition, hopefully come to love competition, and more importantly, make a commitment to excellence where they could move into our ranked space, our level 7 events and our level 6 events. But, you know, it's highly likely that as players get into our ranked space that they may decide, you know, ranked tournaments are not for me. And in the past, players have put their rackets down and gone to a different sport. And now with what we're trying to do in the unranked space, we think we'll have products that will keep rackets in players' hands, and they'll have a way to continue to play in events, and maybe if they've had an experience that wasn't so great in the rank level, they can turn that around and come back to our rank space. So we see people moving in and out of level 6s and 7s, maybe going back into the non-ranked space because those events might be more local. But we hope that that our system will be fluid enough that they can move between that round robin in the unranked space and our level 6 and level 7 events. Want to make sure that everybody's aware of the web page, the dedicated web page that Martin talked about earlier. Most importantly, you can see there it is, USTA.com/junior-tour, and want to especially point out there in the red box the key things to know. If you go to that page, you will be able to download a document on the ranking system for 2021, and for those of you who have no fear, you can dive into our ranking point tables and see all of the points in the various tournaments and for every round and for compass draw formats and the like. Please share that with anyone that you know. The more people that visit this website, the better. It is a living, breathing website. We fully expect that to change over the course of this year as we continue to add more information, especially about registering for tournaments in 2021. On our software side, we will start sanctioning 2021 tournaments in a couple of months, July or August. The one good thing about the pandemic is that it's left people lots of time to work on software development, so they are having at it and making good progress all the time. So please visit this website regularly, as information will be updated constantly throughout the year. Just to want to review the pathway descriptions one more time. Remember that the team challenge is low pressure. This is where we want players to have a chance to be introduced to competition. We're not going to talk about results there. Go out and hit the ball over the net, run around, have fun, and learn a little bit about the game. So our team tournaments, again, substitution is the key there. We're not going to focus on individual results as much as we are team results. As Dan mentioned earlier, the research showed that our customers really are looking for more team events, and we think this is going to be a very valuable space for us. The team league, it's the same idea as our team tournaments, but you're looking at a season of match play here in this area. And then again, our round robin space for individual competition. We really think that this will be a key area in 2021 for our pathway. We hope to see lots of play in this space as players develop a love of competition, and hopefully once they've earned that love of competition by playing in our non-ranked space, they'll be ready to make that commitment to excellence and get into our area of tournaments where rankings are possible. And I think it's really important for everybody to have a good sense of the pathway, and we're hoping that this change for 2021 will really make it much easier for young people to get in the game and to stay in the game, and that we won't have barriers that will prevent people from developing a love of our sport. And I think we're near the end of our presentations. Amy, I might be turning it back over to you now, but I want everybody to know that our next webinar is on Thursday, July 30th, again at noon o'clock. Unfortunately, it will be Eastern Daylight Time as opposed to Eastern Standard Time, but please save that date. And Amy, I think I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Lou. Dan, can you see the questions that have come in?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry, I just clicked on them there.
All right. Do you want to go ahead and divvy those out between you and Lou? And just a reminder to everyone who is joining on the computer, you can submit any questions that you have in that Q&A box on your screen.
Good. Thank you. Yeah. Again, yeah, thank you, Lou, for that. And yeah, hopefully, yeah, so if you guys have some opportunities, happy to take any Q&As. Like what Amy said, you can put it in there. And also what Lou said, there are some, sorry, I'll start my webcam. There's a lot of content on that landing page. So please feel free to go reference that. And also, there's also a dedicated email address there on that landing page that goes to a general inbox. So if you, leave this webinar and think of something and you want to ask a question, please feel free to go to that email address and type in a question. So I see a couple of questions coming in. Great changes. Does a virus pause give us the opportunity to jumpstart the new ranking pathway tournament changes sooner than 2021? It's a good question. Right now, we are, quite honest, everybody, we are kind of in uncharted waters. This doesn't, however, change our plan and accelerating when we're rolling this out. We are still moving forwards with with the January 21 start date. As Lou mentioned, this is actually giving us an opportunity to be sure from a technological standpoint that everything is good and ready to go before we roll it out in January. So this has given us an opportunity to really finalize and fine-tune the technology piece, knowing that a full migration off of TennisLink, which is close to 20 years old, into a new system, there's a lot going on. So at this point, no, we are moving forward with our January 21 start date.
So Dan, why don't I take the question about what happens when points with the points when you age up? Okay. So one thing that we can't fix is that players do get older, and so they do progress from one age division to another. And one of the good things about our system is we're retaining the idea that points will count down into the next younger age division, but that also points will continue to count up. So a player will still be able to take 20% of the points earned in a younger age division to the older age division, as long as those points are among the best of 6 in their new age division. So this should make it a lot easier for that transition to a different age division. We've already had good success with that in our current system with counting points up, and we think that this will be even more enhanced in our new system because we're breaking down the barriers between sections, and players will be able to move across section lines to play in many tournaments.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lou. And why don't I take this next one here? We're getting some good questions coming in. A question came in about green ball in the level 7s. So what that is obviously there are different places in this country that are at altitude and some that are not. Green ball is defined differently, let's just put it that way, throughout the United States. So the group that came up with this, the reason why when you saw that slide that Lou showed with the level 7, you saw a green dot and a yellow dot. That the green ball is just for the 12 and under division and level 7s, and that will be a section decision. So the USTA sections will determine if they want to have the level 7 be 12 green ball or if they want it to be 12 yellow ball. So that will be a section-specific choice. Again, the sections felt that that's kind of the beauty behind this is, yes, we're going under one system, but as you can kind of hear when we were kind of talking and when Lou was going through some specifics, that there's enough flexibility built within there that it gives the sections some flexibility to kind of tweak things and to help out their immediate needs in their sections. So that's the situation with the 12s green ball and the level 7s. All right, Lou, I'm handing it back over to you.
So here's a question for results. Is it still best 6 towards one's ranking? And yes, the concept of your best 6 results to count for ranking towards your ranking will remain for 2021. There's no sentiment to change that now. That seems to be the right amount to encourage play, but not so much that players have an incentive to overplay. So we will keep the best of 6 in 2021. Dan, there's another question about the number of events in your section for your points to count for national standing. Why don't I take that one?
Okay.
So there's no minimum number of events that a player needs to play in order for points to count on national standing. A player only needs to have 1 point on their record in order to appear on the national standing list. But that point needs to come from an actual win on the court. So if it's important to remember that byes don't count as wins. So you actually have to have an on-court win and earn at least 1 point. Now, what is coming in 2021, as I said earlier, we're retaining the section quota list, and this is really getting into the weeds now of the ranking system. But because the sections will retain a list for quota, and we want to offer incentives for players to remain in their sections to play, in the 14s, 16s, and 18 and under age division, up to 3 tournaments that are played outside a player's home section can be used to count for that quota list. All the players' results will still count for the national standings list, but for the quota list in the 14s, 16s, and 18s division, 3 tournaments played outside a player's section will count. That's to offer incentives for players to be able to stay in their home section. In the 12 and under division, only 2 tournaments outside a player's home section will be counting for the quota list. So this is why it's good to go to our website to read some of the details here, because that can be a little confusing piece.
Thank you, Lou. I'm going to take this. Seems when there's one here from a tournament director asking about how do they know what type of tournaments that they're going to be running for 2021. So I think that's a great question. I think that is going to be up to the sections. So basically my understanding is all the sections and the sanction schedule committees and the junior competition committees in each section are in the process of determining how the tournaments are going to be allocated in their section. So I imagine that that would be, I would lean on your section junior staff person there to determine how and what your current tournament is that you're running and how that's going to equate to the new system. So I think that's a good question. I think that's where you would lean on your section rep there to find out specifics on your tournament. So, all right, Lou.
So here's a question. It seems.
All right.
1 more minute. Okay. So I'll go through this quickly. It seems like the new point tables have less value than the current tables. Doesn't that create a problem in having an accurate ranking? So the points are changing for 2021, but it doesn't matter what the actual points are as much as the relative difference between levels and different rounds. And we've worked very hard to make sure that the ranking points are consistent between levels and progressive as far as the number of points a player can earn in each round. So because of that, and everybody playing in one system, it's all related to each other. So we don't think that that will be an issue in an accurate ranking. But it is worth saying that we constantly look at this. We're studying the tables. I didn't mention that throughout 2020 we are running a series of shadow rankings with using 2021 points for our 2020 tournaments. We don't have really a lot to look at with those shadow rankings right now because of the suspension of play since March. But we will be looking at those shadow rankings throughout the year. Hopefully we'll be back playing soon. And we will be publishing those shadow rankings to the public later in the year so that players will see how they stand with those shadow rankings.
Thank you, Lou. And then I'm going to take one more quickly because I think this is a good point. There was a comment about where are additional resources going to be housed or this recorded webinar. So as Lou mentioned, there is going to be a series of these webinars coming up. The next one's in, I think it was July. But this particular webinar is being recorded, and we do plan on putting it on the landing page. And also, too, along those lines, we're introducing a series of, we're calling them whiteboard educational videos that are going to be kind of a shorter duration, 1.5, 2 minutes long. So any additional information that gets added throughout the course of this year will be on that landing page. So I would encourage everybody to bookmark that, jot that landing page down, and any information will go there. We're also, all the sections are driving people there as well. It's very important to us that the messaging is the same. So just want to be sure that everybody is fully aware of that there's more information coming. So Lou, hand it over to you. Are we good? Amy, are we good?
I think we're out of time.
Yep.
All
Thanks
right.
everyone for joining.
Thank you all for joining, and we hope everybody stays safe. I hope you found this beneficial. And again, please